Welcome to our last session for designing your text set. In our previous sessions in this module, you have finished stage 1 to the best of your abilities, and you have finished stage 2 to the best of your abilities, going back and forth, making changes to adjust alignment to the standards. Now we're moving on to stage 3. This is where you make your learning plan. Notice your information will come from most of stage 1 and stage 2, and you're putting the plan in place. If you notice, here I have a strategy that I want to teach. That's not my focus right now. What my focus is right now is not to design lessons and units around activities. My purpose is to design lessons within a unit which are focused on the standards and the evidence of learning for the students using your 6th grade, well, not 6th grade, but using your grade level scaffolding tool. If I go back, I want to say, okay, lesson 1, I'm teaching comprehension. So let's look at my objectives. My objectives, well, my standards are RI 6.1, RI 6.3, and the history standards. So my ELA would be RI 6.1 and RI 6.3. I can simply copy these objectives and place them here. Now do note, as I'm modeling this for you, I'm only modeling a portion of it because I want you to come together and do it and build it. Okay? But always refer back to the videos if need be. So I have RI 6.1, and then I'll list RI 6.3, and notice I'm listing the objective, not the standards. Then I'll also put my history standard, which is CRHR 6. Okay? And that will go here. And of course, you're going to list out your objective, which all comes from stage 1. All that work is paying off. Now, the next item that I want to really work on would be my skill. What skill am I trying to work on? Well, I am actually working on citing textual evidence by reading closely. So I'm like, okay, what can I use as a strategy to help me do that? Well, I simply go to Buell. It's your Buell text. And I look on pages 54 through 55. Now, you wouldn't type that in there, but I'm just giving you what to look for, okay? So at this time, turn to Buell pages 54 through 55. Well, I want to make sure that they're citing textual evidence, but if I go back, I also am focusing on my other standard. And so my objective is, it says, analyze in detail how a key individual event or idea is introduced, illustrated or elaborated through examples or anecdotes. And notice that's why those standards go very well together. So going back, what do I want to work on here? Standard 3, look here. Close reading informational text using evidence. That's what they're going to be able to do. That's what they have to do this. But look over here. Understand how causal relationships between events, ideas, and of individuals and ideas are introduced and developed within the informational text. Illustrates means to explain, describe, and give example of individual event. So we're really focusing on the key event. And the key event here for my unit is the sinking of the Titanic. So I simply want the student will, what is it asking you? The student will, and I love to look at these kind of in the same. If I can get my wonderful, here we go. The student will analyze the causal, oh goodness, relationships to the design of the Titanic, the operation of the Titanic, and the leadership, the morality of the crew of the Titanic. And I can kind of make this less wordy. And its sinking as developed in, as introduced and developed in diverse informational text. Okay, it'd be nice if I could actually spell. Now, I want to take some of this out. The design of operation of and morality of the crew of the Titanic. Or I can say the Titanic's design, operations. Ooh, I like that. Operations. And the morality of the crew. And it's sinking. Now, when I originally started this, my language arts objective was to analyze the causal relationships. And if you notice, I put the history in here. Well, this is my social studies standards that ties back to my social studies standard. If you go here, understand the influences of historical documents, events, and social movements. Well, I really need to move this because, yeah, I want them to understand causal relationships, but this is not within my language arts. This is more social studies based. So what can I do? The students will analyze the causal relationships with or about a historical event by developing analyzing, I'm trying to get the word, by analyzing how the event is introduced and developed in diverse informational text. And so then I can actually take this and it can be part of here. See how this is more specific to the language arts. And I can put historical event, or I can put a scientific, let's see what the standard is. Yeah, a scientific idea. So just think about that. Okay? See how you go back and forth between, if it doesn't match, you need to go back. Everything has to be aligned to the standards. All right, so I'm putting an objective here, and it's natural to struggle with those. So then what are my literacy skills? Well, they should be able to cite text evidence. So these students will cite textual evidence with reading closely and using analysis of informational text. Okay? But then I also want the students will analyze causal relationships among diverse text on the event Titanic. See, here you can actually put Titanic in there because you're in your lessons. On the sinking of the Titanic and how this event is introduced and developed within and among the text. Because we're going to look in and across the text. So that's the skill. Okay? Then you want to look at literacy strategies. Now we're working on what activity can help me achieve these objectives and this literacy skill. Well, okay, I'm going to go over here and I'm going to say, okay, I have this whole list of strategies on pages 54 through 55 that you should have turned and opened. And what would fit standards 1 and 3? So if you go here, I actually have a list for you of approved literacy strategies within Module 4. And I have listed very specific which ones I want you to use. Please note, I want you to use one of these approved strategies, not something else. As noted, the text coding that I instructed on in the earlier module is not on here because that's something as for close reading and citing textual to help support citing textual evidence, but that's not on here. So I want you to delve deep into these strategies. All right, so look at the KWL Plus, which is on page 55, and I notice it teaches strategies 1, 2, 3, 1 and 3. Those are the ones that I'm instructing on. Okay, I could use that as an option. Then I look at the double entry diary, and it has standards 1 and 3 there. So I definitely can use that strategy to teach these standards. Well, then I look at anticipation guides. Bless it. It's like saying aluminum for some people. And I noticed that standard 3 is not within the list. It says 1, 2, 5, 6, 8, and 10. So I cannot use that strategy. Then I have magnet summaries. And magnet summaries, which is on page 55, has standards 1 and 3. So I can definitely look at that. Well, then I have to decide, okay, I'm working on history, and I'm working on the Titanic. And now I go to my text list, and I say, okay, let me look at my text. Here are my 5 options. And, of course, yours is going to have rationale, so those are to be built there. Here are my 5 options, and this is my mentor text, A Night to Remember. So that's my mentor text, and I'm going to just place it up here. And please note, that's your mentor text for every one of these lessons. So what do? You put in every one of the lessons. Go ahead and just copy it, put it right in there. Done. Okay? Alright, so I'm going to model this literacy skill using a strategy using this mentor text, A Night to Remember. Okay? Well, I wonder, do I want to use any supplemental text? Well, I have to look at my mentor text, A Night to Remember. And looking at A Night to Remember and its Lexile level and its rationale, like how many pages, how is it appropriate for the lesson, interest, so on and so forth, what is the book about, then I can go and I can start building deciding what strategy would best fit the skill and the social studies content. And you can actually take this out because you're dealing with social studies. If you're science, do the same thing. So then I'm like, okay, I really want to check out this the double entry diary. So go back to the table of contents. And when I go back to the table of contents, I'm looking at double entry diary, page 98. So I'm turning to page 98. And so I have to have some type of understanding of the double entry diary. I love it. If you look at this, because I'm a visual learner, and I look on page 99, if you turned with me, I hope, the double entry diary, and it says text passage and passage number. Okay. And this is important because, I could so see using that strategy. And then that one is what I learned, what I'm thinking. But notice, I love to look at the advantages. Look at the advantages on page 100. Students are conditioned to be active thinkers. Okay. So it looks like it says clarifying questions, considering what information is most significant. Okay. So that sounds like my standards that I'm really trying to meet. They have to are monitored to assume personal responsibility of their own comprehension by using strategies. Well, I'm going to teach them those strategies. And then they're going to have a written record. Well, in my assessment piece here, I'm looking for specific details and evidence from the text to support their information, their ideas. And I'm looking, can they analyze and select details that are important? And can they decide on what details to omit from the list? So, this sounds like something that I could check out. Of course, you can check out the other ones. If you notice, on page 99, I see my text codes from when I modeled for you how to text code, the text code strategy. So this goes great with what I've already taught the students on text coding. So therefore, I'm going to use the double entry diary. This is what I do. Okay, the literacy strategies. The students will cite, make it short because you don't have to constantly repeat here. The students will practice the literacy skill above by using a double entry diary, and then I've got to cite it, Buell, and I've got to put the year. Go back to your APA citations and make sure you're using your APA citations. Educators don't use MLA. That's English majors. We're educators, so we use APA. So 2014, And then I want to put the page number so I can go back to it. Pages 98 through and I'm going to keep going through 100. Okay? Got it? Give yourself an explanation of this strategy, and you can do that by actually reading, using this strategy. What are the readers going to do? Well, it says that they're going to double entry diaries use reader responses to prompt essential comprehension processes and making connections to background knowledge, creating mental images, posing questions, and making inferences and clarifying confusion. So they're basically, if you keep going, it says double entry diaries are a version of two-column or Cornell note-taking and are tailored to students to analyze their thinking. So students will analyze their thinking and support their thinking with textual evidence using this note-taking strategy. Okay? Just a brief one statement of what is it, paraphrased in your own words. Now you want to give a brief summary about how you will teach the literacy strategy to your students. Literacy skill using the strategy, and this is called the gradual release of responsibility design. Okay? And to give you a little brief of what it is, it's basically you model, then you as a class, you do it together, they work on it in groups, and then they work on it individually. And it kind of flows however you want it to be. And this is where you're going to need the most, this is where it's going to take the most time for, this is going to take the most time for this, okay? So watch. I'm going to take my text. And so as you're grabbing your text, you want to say, okay, how can I use this text to teach my students? That's what you're asking. And you want to think about length, okay? Well, this book, A Night to Remember, is not lengthy, but it's chunked with a lot of information, which can be overwhelming. So, as a teacher, I can say, all right, how do I want to work this out? Well, I know for the first I'm going to introduce the standards, essential questions, and I kind of like to do a sketch, so watch. Introduce the standards, essential questions, and actually what the strategy is basically about. Our basic, I can just say strategy basics. Because remember, this is a unit, okay? 2, well, I want to model, like I'm doing for you, if I can spell correctly. I want to model how to use the strategy, how to use the strategy to support the literacy skill. And so what you notice is I didn't put anything about the literacy skill. Standards, essential questions, and I want to introduce the literacy skill in strategy basics. Okay. And I always focus on why. Why is this important? Why is this important to learn? Okay. Then I model for the students. So I model the use of double entry diary by reading the first 2 pages of the mentor text. Actually, I'm going to do the first 4. The first 4 pages of the mentor text and how to achieve the literacy skill by using the double entry diary. And I want to make sure that I tie back to the why. So how does this strategy help me? And why is it important to use this strategy to help achieve the literacy skill? And then next, I'm going to say, okay, I actually want to, I like for my students to kind of struggle a little bit because they're 6th graders. So I do sometimes my gradual release a little different. All right. You can, I actually do mine where sometimes they work as partners and then they come back to me and I guide them some more and then they go back and work individually. In some instances, I have seen it where students work individually, then students work with partners, then the teacher models, then the teacher guides, and then they continue to go through and they go straight back to individual or straight back to partner and then individual. As long as you touch on all 4 throughout the lesson. So I actually like for my students to partner. Students will partner together to use the double entry diary strategy for the next 4 pages of the mentor text. Teacher will gather whole group to share, and when we share, I want to focus on tell me what you did and why you did it. And focus on tell me what you did, why you did it, and how this helped you practice or helped you achieve the literacy skill. Okay, that's what I want to focus on. All right, so then the students do that, and I've kind of gotten them engaged. They're no longer listening to me. They're working together, and then we come back together. Well, this is when I guide with the whole group. So the teacher will guide the whole group to help purposefully map out the steps of using the double entry diary for the next 2 pages of the mentor text. All right. So then once I do that, and they're guiding me, and guiding means the students are telling me what's being done, or the students are going up to the chart paper and doing what's needed to be done. Like the students are actually guiding through the process with your guidance. So they're going through the whole strategy process to help learn the strategy, the literacy skill, but they're going through it with your guidance. And now they have some type of prior knowledge to use to where they worked with partners. All right, so students will continue to partner and use the strategy for the next 2 pages of the mentor text. And those are actually my last 2 pages that I want to introduce. I'm not going to introduce the entire mentor text on this day. Okay? And what I may do is, oh, you know what? I want to bring in supplemental text. So I actually think I'm going to take pages of this Kids Titanic, and instead of me constantly doing the mentor text, since I have modeled and then I actually had the students go through and read the 4 pages and I guided them through it, I'm going to say the students will continue to partner and use the strategy for the first 2 sections of the magazine on Titanic. That pulls me in with another text. And I can actually, if my text is too long, my mentor text is long, I can save it and introduce more here, in which it really is. It's a little too lengthy to continue. You don't have to get through the whole mentor text. You do want to model reading aloud to the students. So that's where I'm doing that here. Think about time. Like, how much time do I want to spend? You need to spend 45 to 60 minutes for each lesson. So I know this is going to take me 5 minutes. So be thinking about that. And this, I actually should take no more than 10 minutes. After 10 minutes, you're going to lose the students. This, I could see them struggling through it and would probably take 15 minutes. Here, it's guided. The students are walking you through it, and that does take a little more time. So that should be about 10, I'm going to say 15 minutes. Because when the students gather as a whole group, I actually need to put this here. Because if you're coming back, that's a together time. So let's do here, and let's do, maybe takes us 20 minutes. Okay? And the students will continue to partner. Well, I noticed I didn't put any individual work in here. So why can't we, instead of doing individual, why don't they, students will individually use the strategy to analyze for different sections of the magazine on Titanic. So I actually could give each group a different section to analyze. And then, oh, this will be good. So this is going to take us a little bit of time. So let's see. I have 20. And that's 35, 45, 50. Oh, I better shave some time off. Well, if they're doing this together on 4 pages, why am I spending 20 minutes on here? So I've got to think about that. So I just want to cut that down to 10. So it's 10, 20, 35, 40. So I'm going to say the remaining 20 minutes, I'm actually going to have them do this, okay? Actually 15. Because I'm going to break the sections down to where some of the sections are 1-pagers, where I'm going to give my lower readers that 1 page. Some of the sections are 2-pagers with a lot of visual aids, and I'll give those to my own level. And then some of the sections are 2 pages with a lot of text. I'm going to get those to my advanced. Then I'm going to have them, students will meet with someone. Oh no, students will. I had to think about what do I want to do there for them to come out and share. I want them to focus on the literacy skills. So students will come together as a class and share out. And I want to go back to my focus questions. What did you do? Why did you do it? And how did this help you achieve the literacy skill? And I want to spend about 5 minutes on this. Done. And then I can take my Buell text and I can actually, I don't have to put this here. I can actually take this and put my whole citation down here of the literacy strategy. But I like to put it here too. So not only do you need it here, but you also need it down here. So look at your citation guide, okay? Now, that's lesson 1. That's what you do. As far as lesson 2, you'll use these strategies if you're with social studies, these strategies for science. For lesson 3, you'll use these strategies for vocabulary. Lesson 4, you'll use these strategies for writing. And in your disciplinary lesson, please note, some of these strategies are not in the Buell text. They are actually in the disciplinary literacy strategy folder within Module 4. Because these are not in the Buell text and somewhat difficult because it's not in language arts, if you're using these 2 strategies right here, well, what historical literacy skill are you using? This. Okay? That. It's called, you're teaching the students how to use cooperation, conceptualization, and sourcing with those 2 graphic organizers. Okay? Now, if you use the different perspectives, it's right here. That's the strategy. You're taking historical perspective taking. That's the skill, not the strategy, the skill. Same thing here. If you choose to use this strategy, you're focusing on the skills of formulating questions about a science text and make connections to the real world. All these other strategies, they're built within the explanation that you find. Okay? That's basically it. Does it take a lot of time and effort? Yes. Do well here, and when we get to our lesson plan design, all you do is pull and elaborate. Pull and elaborate. It's a copy and paste. Pull and elaborate. Pull and elaborate. And that's where you get to the very specifics. I like an instruction summary. I like it laid out like this, but you do it how you need to. I want to see model. I want to see how will they work together in some way. I want to see how you're going to actually come together and guide the whole group. How will students individually work? And do know you need an introduction and a closure. I hope this has been helpful for you. Don't forget, mentor text in every lesson. And you want to use all 5 of your texts. Could you have more? Yes. The options are limitless. Please, please take your time on this. Think about it. Come ask me questions. Come visit me on my office hours. Put something in the discussion box for Ask the Teacher, the questions for the teacher section. email me. I'm here for you. Don't wait till the last minute to plan. As you already see, this does take some work. Hope this has been helpful, and I'll catch you on the next video. Night.